Good morning, afternoon or evening. Now this video is a break from the usual because it's going to bring you some information on how 0 AD may be changing going into Alpha 24. We're going to look at a few of the changes that are currently being debated on the forum, and some of these are already in testing, and then we're going to actually have a look at how they're going to impact the game. So after that, you'll also have a chance to let me know in the comments whether you think the change is good or not, provide some feedback. So let's dive into the first few changes. So what's being proposed in terms of updates varies from little things like how much a gate on a stone wall should cost, and whether that cost should be stone, wood or metal, to things that are going to make far more difference, like balancing heroes, upgrades and units. So I've had a look through the list of potential changes, and I've seen which ones are ongoing, and I've picked out 3 which I think stand out as particularly impactful. So first up for me is the biggest potential change, and this is that all slingers, catapults and quinqueremes will have their stone cost reduced to 0. Now this means that slingers would cost the same as a skirmisher or an archer, and catapults would have their stone replaced with metal. The quinquereme on the other hand will see their stone cost split 200 to metal and 50 to wood, and that means that 100 stone is still unaccounted for, but never mind about that. Anyway, as ships and catapults are a bit more specialist, let's focus on the impact on slingers, as I think this will be absolutely huge. Now the main impact is that civilizations such as Britons that start with slingers will no longer get the advantage of being able to use their 300 starting stone to create troops. Currently they can get 10 slingers even if they only collect food at the start, and that makes a slinger rush a very tempting option. So this will be no more, and it will be a massive loss to Britain's players, and to a lesser extent Athenians' prospect of a Phase 1 knockout win. Now later in the game though, I'll also see it increasing the attractiveness of slingers, as wood will be sufficient to keep turning them out in large numbers. It will also reduce the value of stone in the game hugely, and that will have implications on trade costs, and will also make barracks, well, the ones that cost stone anyway, and fortresses easier to obtain. In all, it's undoubtedly a massive change to the game and will lead to totally new playstyles for Britons, and I think could see dominating stone on the map be much less important for most civilizations. My verdict on this is I think that this amendment would change the way you had to play the game and would seriously impact the value of stone. I also expect that it would see new strategies born and old ones become redundant. That said, it's not fundamentally going to change anything about how the game functions, and it will take a lot of plays to really see how this manifests. I do expect it to have plenty of unintended consequences, and if implemented, I think it will be a major challenge to how many people play the game. But overall, I'm pretty much non-committal on the change. I don't really see whether it's good or bad, but what I do think is that it's definitely an interesting idea. The second change that I'm interested in is with regards to fortresses having a territory route. Now, my first question, or what I expect your first question to be rather, is what is a root territory? Well, basically, this is something that radiates loyalty, and it means that buildings that are nearby that aren't garrisoned will stay on your side. It, stops them from turning to Gaia. Now, as it stands, only civic centres and military colonies have this, and that means a fortress can't currently keep any building nearby it loyal if that building loses its direct link to the civic centre that provides the initial territory, and this usually happens by the civic centre being destroyed. This change, however, would make the fortress radiate loyalty and make it have a similar impact to a civic centre in keeping all of the buildings nearby loyal, regardless of that territorial link. Therefore, the main difference would be that normally in the game, a sneaky ram attack can currently cause all of your buildings to gradually lose loyalty if it knocks out a civic centre, but under these changes, if you had a fortress connected through your territory, it would keep all your farms, your storehouses, your barracks, etc. loyal, and therefore make that kind of attack far less effective. In fact, it may lead to you not even needing to rebuild your civic centre at all, as all of its functions could be carried out by other buildings. The storehouse could take all your minerals and wood, the farmstead could drop off food, and barracks and houses could be used to create soldiers and women respectively. In terms of my verdict on this one, well, I don't actually think that if it's implemented as currently stated, it's a particularly good idea. For me, it totally changes the importance of a CC, which I feel at its essence is the embodiment of your civilization. So when that goes, I think it should spell the end for you unless you can rebuild it quickly. If you let a fortress undertake that role, when, in my eyes, that should actually symbolise a civilisation's military strength, I think it corrupts a fundamental aspect of the game. Therefore, I'd only really be happy with this amendment if it still required you to have at least one CC or military colony on the map in order for the fortress to radiate loyalty. Without that caveat, I think it's just too big of a change to the fundamentals of the game, personally. This next change is of interest to me as I just love Lancers at phase 1. Love them. Now this will move them from attacking once every 2 seconds to once every 1.25 seconds, and for me this is going to make Romans and Macedonians lethal in phase 1, and it will see spear cavalry remain useful all the way through the game. And I make that second point as currently I feel that spear cavalry are only really useful when they're attacking women, woodcutters and farmers, as they tend to get bogged down in melee fights and just don't really pull their weight, and that's due to their slow attack repetition. Therefore, as soon as a population moves from being mostly women gathering resources to mostly soldiers doing it, their use is massively diminished. So this change definitely makes them more useful all the way through the game, as they're now going to be able to take out other cavalry far more easily and also win battles that they'd currently lose, and those are battles that I currently think they really shouldn't be losing. So, with that in mind, what's my verdict on this change? Well, as I love Lancers, I think you're not going to be surprised to find that fundamentally I think this needs to happen. But I do ask, is there a way to make Lancers useful throughout the game that doesn't also make them just incredibly OP in phase 1? So I'm not sure that it's simple to do this, but I do think if this was brought in as it's currently understood, then Rome and Macedon would become the New Britons for me, i.e. they'd just be massively OP in the village phase. Therefore, I do wonder if the amendment could see something like a gradual reduction in attack repetition through the phases. Could they go from 2 seconds per attack in phase 1 to 1.5 seconds in phase 2 and finally down to 1.25 in phase 3? Now, I'm not sure how easy to implement this is, but I'd much prefer something along these lines that doesn't take a unit that's currently good in phase 1 but underpowered later on and turn it into one that's OP from the start, and thus give anyone using that early unit a massive advantage prior to phasing up. And that's my analysis of my first 3 changes that I've looked at in terms of the game changing for A24. So, what did you think? Are there any other potential changes that you'd like to see me look at? If so, then let me know in the comments. I've included the web address of the potential changes on screen now, so you can go and check them out. Anyway, as always, like, subscribe and ring that bell for regular 0 AD content. And I look forward to seeing you in a week's time. Stay safe.